Here is the recap of the first and second seasons of Loki. As we know from the movie Avengers Endgame, the heroes, Avengers, returned to the past in 2012 and tried to steal the tesseract. But because of an oversight, it is stolen by Loki from the past. He moves to Mongolia and again tries to enslave mankind. But then some people appear from the teleport and introduce themselves as agents of Time Variance Authority. In the future, I will call this organization TVA. They call Loki a variant, accuse him of a crime against the sacred timeline and disarm him without any problems. When Loki arrives at the TVA headquarters, he tries to escape. But since he is wearing a special collar that allows the guards to send him back in time and the fact that magic cannot be used in the TVA, he fails. The organization is huge and filled with bureaucracy. While Loki waits in the court line on the TV screen, he is told the history of the TVA. Once upon a time, there was a war in the multiverse, and the timelines fought each other for supremacy, which could have led to the end of everything. But then the Timekeepers appeared, united the multiverse into one sacred timeline, and now continue to make sure it stays the same. However, sometimes personalities appear that disrupt the proper flow of time and create a new timeline. This can lead to the formation of even more timelines and therefore to a new global war. The TVA's actual task is to find such individuals, whom they call variants, and restore the time stream by erasing this timeline with a special device. Loki is taken to the courtroom, where Judge Ravonna Renslayer condemns the hero to death. But a TVA agent named Mobius shows up and asks that Loki be put in his care to help catch a dangerous variant that tracks agents, kills them, and takes their devices that erase faulty timelines. Mobius shows Loki his near future, which would have happened if he hadn't captured that tesseract. The hero doesn't believe the agent at first and even manages to escape, but soon discovers that the TVA is so powerful that they even have Infinity Stones lying around like toys. Back in Mobius' office, he also learns that he will die at the hands of Thanos and will be responsible for the death of his mother. He realizes that all this time he's been craving power that he doesn't even need and agrees to work for TVA. Mobius tells the hero that the variant they are looking for is one of Loki's variations, and that's why he chose our Loki to figure out how to catch him. After digging through the archives, the hero guesses that the variant they are looking for is most likely hiding in places where catastrophic events are about to happen. That is, if the variable arrives at a certain point in time on the eve of some local or global apocalypse, then all its actions will not affect this timeline, because there will be no one alive, and TVA agents will not be able to detect them. The hero tells Mobius about this, and they decide to test this theory by going to Pompeii a few minutes before the catastrophe, where they are convinced that whatever they do there, it has no effect on the timeline. Upon further investigation, they guess that the variant they are looking for is hiding in the year 2050, where the biggest Strom is taking place at this time. The heroes, together with TVA agents, go there, and Loki discovers that the variant is his female copy, who calls herself Sylvia. There we learn that she has the ability to enter people's consciousness, read their minds, and even control them. She even takes control of 2 TVA agents, causing them to start remembering their past lives before TVA. But I'll talk about that later. After talking to Loki, Sylvia ignores him, activates the devices that erase the timelines she stole and sends them to different times, causing chaos in TVA, which she intends to use to kill the Timekeepers. Loki goes after her, as he is still undecided about which side he is on. But when they are surrounded by agents, Loki uses the TVA's Tempad to teleport himself and Sylvia to a planet where a moon is about to fall, and the TVA can't find them there. Loki and Sylvia learn that the Tempad has run out of energy, and they cannot teleport off the planet. They decide to temporarily declare a truce and go to the nearest town to recharge the Tempad. On the way there, the heroes tell each other about their past, and we learn that the TVA captured Sylvia as a child. They wanted to eliminate her, but the girl escaped and hid for many years in worlds where disasters will happen. The woman also tells Loki that all TVA agents are actually variant like them, who were kidnapped by the Timekeepers, had their memories erased, and were forced to work for the organization. Sylvia and Loki make it to the city, but the only remaining shuttle explodes before their eyes. Meanwhile, TVA tries to determine where the heroes teleported to and find any deviations in the timeline, but they fail. Sylvia and Loki realize that they will probably never escape and begin to share their feelings. They realize that they are very similar to each other, as they have always been lonely and had no real feelings for anyone. So they begin to have feelings for each other. This causes a temporal leap, with the help of which TVA finds them and takes heroes to their headquarters. Mobius interrogates Loki, who tells him that TVA is in fact deceiving everyone and that the workers are in fact variant. Mobius doesn't take the god of deception at his word, but still thinks about his words and goes to Renslayer. He tries to find out what happened to the agent who was hypnotized by Sylvia, but the judge informs him that she went crazy and had to be eliminated. The hero realizes that Renslayer is lying and steals her tempad, where he discovers a tape on which he finds proof that TVA is lying to everyone. Meanwhile, another agent, to whom Sylvia opened her eyes, helps the girl to escape, but she comes back to kill the timekeepers. Mobius frees Loki, but Renslayer and his agents show up and wipe out Mobius. Loki and Sylvia are taken to the timekeepers for the final trial, but the agent who helps Sylvia appears and frees the heroes. The female version of Loki tries to kill the timekeepers, but it turns out that they are just robotic puppets. Loki tries to confess his love to Sylvia, but Renslayer attacks him from behind and wipes out the hero. However, Loki does not die, but finds himself in a world where he is met by other Loki variants and they offer to go with them. It turns out that everything that TVA erases, whether living or non-living objects, falls into the so-called void, which is somewhere at the end of the timeline. This is where all matter is subsequently devoured by Aliot, a huge, cloudy creature that is impossible to defeat. Since the Loki variants often violate the chronology of time in the void, they have accumulated a lot. Roughly speaking, the only living inhabitants of the void are different Loki from different timelines, between which there is a non-stop war. The protagonist convinces his saviors to go to Aliot and try to destroy him. Meanwhile, in TVA, Sylvia learns from Renslayer that Loki is not really dead, but has been sent to the void. The girl takes the tempad from the judge and goes after the god of deception. Having run into Alioth, the heroine is rescued by Mobius, who also got here, and together they find our Loki. With the help of Sylvia's ability, the heroes take control of the monster, and a portal to the castle opens before them, which floats in a place called the End of Time. Mobius realizes that whoever is behind all this is taking away people's free will and returns to TVA to talk to Renslayer. He wants to tell everyone at TVA that they have been deceived all this time. But the judge does not agree with this decision and goes somewhere in search of free will. Sylvia and Loki enter the castle and find there a man nicknamed He Who Remains. Let's call him Kang, since it's his comic name and it's actually easier. Since the villain has the ability to foresee everything and can teleport at any time, the heroes fail to defeat him and he tells them his story. In the 31st century, a scientist appeared on Earth who figured out how to interact with the multiverse and met his copies from other worlds. For a while, they shared information and evolved. But some Kangs decided to conquer the other worlds and a global war broke out. One of the Kang, wishing to end the war, finds a creature called Aliot who was capable of devouring timelines. After a while, there is only one sacred timeline left in which Kang is left, the one who remains. Soon he created the TVA, the purpose of which is to prevent the appearance of new timelines in which Kang may appear and the war will be repeated. The one who remains informs the heroes that he has lived so long that he is tired of it all. And also from now on he doesn't know what will happen next. So he offers them two options. The first is to kill him, as Sylvia wants, but then countless new Kangs will appear and a great war will happen. The second, the heroes become at the controls of TVA, but they will have to deal with taking away people's free will and erasing the wrong timelines. Loki tries to convince Sylvia not to kill Kang and even confesses his love to her. But the girl doesn't listen to the hero, kills the villain, which causes countless timelines to appear, after which Loki is sent to TVA. However, it turns out that this TVA is not the same where the heroes came from, and in this world the organization is run by Kang himself. I hope I haven't confused you. This is the end of the first season. If you've listened all the way up here, you like what I do. So subscribe to my channel. Like this video and write some comments. Loki finds himself in the TVA where Kang is in charge. But it turns out that for some reason he has traveled to the past of the TVA, which was previously thought impossible. You can't travel through time here. Suddenly, the protagonist, even without the pace, spontaneously begins to slide through time and does not understand what is happening. Meanwhile, after Kang's death, countless timelines have appeared. Since Renslayer has left TVA, the officers don't know what exactly they are supposed to do now. Mobius and B-15 go to the top management and tell them that destroying the timelines can't be just like that, because it's genocide. This is when Loki appears and realizes that he has finally come to the right time. He explains to those present that they are all variants with erased memories stolen by Kang from their timelines. To solve Loki's problem with constant time travel, Moebius takes him to Ouroboros. The man has been here for thousands of years and had a hand in creating the TVA. Ouroboros later realizes that the temporal loom, a device that weaves timelines into one sacred one, is to blame, but because there are so many of them now, the loom is failing, which could lead to the destruction of the TVA. I won't bore you with explaining what the protagonists need to do to solve Loki's problem. Roughly speaking, Mobius has to go to the temporal loom, which is very dangerous, and pull his friend out of there, at a time when Loki should be erasing himself. The protagonist has no control over this and starts time hopping again, and at one point sees Sylvia in the TVA elevator. However, someone erases him, after which Mobius pulls Loki out of the loom. The protagonists learn that Dox, the TVA general, has taken his men away on some kind of mission, which is strange at this time. Loki and Mobius track down one of them, nicknamed X5, who betrayed the others and lived an ordinary life for several years. After interrogating him, they learn that Dox is going to destroy all the side timelines that have appeared in order to protect the TVA and the sacred timeline. From X5, the protagonists also learn the location of Sylvia, who decides to live a quiet life after all that has happened. Loki finds her and convinces her to help. The protagonists eventually stop Dox and her men, but several hundred timelines were still destroyed. Meanwhile, Renslayer arrives in 1868, where she meets Miss Minute. She tells her that she has clear instructions on what to do after Kang's death. First of all, the girl must throw a package into a certain window and teleport 25 years ahead. It turns out that in this package was a TVA guidebook written by Ouroboros a long time ago for the personnel of the organization. And it's being picked up by a young version of Kang who lives on planet Earth. Meanwhile, while TVA is inactive, the number of timelines is increasing. Ouroboros realizes that the temporal loom will eventually fail. He wants to modify it, but for some reason access to it has been closed by Miss Minute and only Kang himself can open the door. The protagonists realize that first they need to find Miss Minute, who is most likely with Renslayer. They track down her tempad signal and arrive in 1893. There they accidentally stumble upon the local Kang, who is here named Victor Timely. I'll still refer to him as Kang from here on out for convenience. The protagonists try to recruit him, and Sylvia tries to kill him. So Renslayer and Miss Minute outrun them, and they escape. Kang tells his traveling companions that when he received the TVA guidebook, he started taking notes and inventing different devices, but the current technology did not allow him to create what he had in mind. Renslayer tells him that he should become Kang and create a TVA where they will rule together. Kang does not want a partner and throws the girl off the ship at night, after which he goes to his laboratory. However, there he realizes that Miss Minute is also a little crazy and disconnects her in time. Loki and Mobius appear and convince the man to go to TVA with them. Meanwhile, Sylvia teleports Renslayer to the end of time, not knowing that Miss Minute was with her and will be able to get out of there. Soon the artificial intelligence shows the woman the past. It turns out that long time ago, she and Kang won a war against the Kangs from other branches and created a sacred timeline. However, the man erased everyone's memory of himself in TVA, including Renslayer. The girl, along with Miss Minute, realize that Kang never considered them their equals and decide to take over TVA on their own. Kang arrives at TVA with the protagonists and meets Ouroboros. The engineer informs them that he wrote the manual based on Kang's notes, which is a paradox. They then figure out how to modify the temporal loom to allow more timelines to pass through it and begin work. At this point, Renslayer teleports into the cell with Dox and her men and tries to convince them to side with her. The only one who agrees is X5, and the rest are killed by the girl in a very brutal way. Renslayer and her new assistant then kidnap Kang. Loki and Sylvia try to find him, and the protagonist sees himself at the elevator. He realizes what needs to be done and erases his copy. Ouroboros turns off Miss Minute and also disables the device that prevents magic from being used in the TVA. After that, Sylvia and Loki manage to find Kang and erase Renslayer. That seems to be it. There's only one thing left to do. Kang rushes to the temporal loom to modify him, but he is split into atoms. The temporal loom then breaks apart and explodes. Despite this, Loki finds himself in a completely empty TVA and doesn't realize what has happened. Suddenly, he starts to be thrown through time again. This time he keeps getting to variants of his friends, but they don't remember him and live their normal lives. Eventually, he teleports to Ouroboros, who is a scientist and science fiction writer. The Loki gives him a copy of the TVA guidebook, and together they figure out how they can theoretically get things back to the way they were. However, Loki needs to take control of his time travel abilities. Ouroboros uses the TVA manual to create a tempad, and the protagonist gathers all of his friends, telling them that this is how they will save their worlds. The last one he finds is Sylvia, but it turns out she also remembers what happened. Plus, she has a special tempad that she took from Kang in Season 1. Loki gathers all his friends, which in theory will help them get everything back. But suddenly all the worlds begin to split and the characters disappear one by one. The protagonist realizes that he has learned how to travel through time at will and is transported a few minutes before the temporal loom explodes. He tries time after time to fix everything, but nothing works. Loki even spends several decades to learn physics sufficiently. After countless attempts under the guidance of the protagonist, Victor timely manages to modify the loom. However, this is not enough. The timelines are still multiplying exponentially. The Loki realizes that the only way to prevent everything is to stop Sylvia from killing Kang at the end of time. He tries to stop her, but after many attempts he decides to talk to Kang himself. Turns out he saw all of this coming, and we learn that the temporal loom doesn't actually weave timelines. He also destroys them, leaving just one sacred one. But the Weaver can't handle too many, so TVA destroyed the excess. Kang says that the Loki has only two options. Let Sylvia complete her work, but then all worlds will be completely destroyed. Or kill Sylvia. Then Kang will continue to rule, and there will only be one sacred timeline, and people will have no free will. After all these years of traveling through time, Loki has learned not only how to glide through time, but also how to control it. He meets Sylvia and remembers that there is a third option. Loki finally realizes what kind of god he really wants to be. He travels to the temporal loom and destroys it. Then he takes all the timelines that have appeared and goes to the end of time, where he sits on the throne. Then the Yggdrasil tree appears and Loki maintains the flow of time. Now the danger from countless other Kangs will exist, but humans have free will and can defend themselves. After a while, TVA deals with preventing the Kangs from influencing the other timelines. Sylvia decides to go on with her normal life, and Moebius returns to his family after all. This is the end of the second season. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the like button. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.